Rihanna and A$AP Rocky were supposed to be the couple that survived everything. Rumors, fame, pressure, even bullets fired at their own home. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could prepare the world for what allegedly happened after Rihanna dropped her latest lingerie photos. Because within hours of those pictures going viral, something behind closed doors reportedly snapped. Sources close to the situation claim A$AP Rocky didn't just react, he exploded. Not in public, not on camera, but in a way that insiders are describing as the most intense breakdown anyone has ever seen from him. And then came the moment that changed everything. Rihanna, the woman who built an empire on control, confidence, and independence, allegedly made a decision that shocked even her closest circle. A decision that no one saw coming. A decision that may have marked the beginning of the end. But here's where it gets even darker. Because while fans were busy praising the photos, and while the internet turned them into a viral moment of beauty and power, something was happening in the shadows that completely flipped the narrative. Messages were being sent, calls were being ignored, and trust, something that took years to build, was allegedly collapsing in real time. And by the time the truth started leaking out, it was already too late to stop what was coming next. To understand how everything allegedly fell apart, you have to go back to the foundation of Rihanna and A$AP Rocky's relationship, because this was never a simple celebrity romance. It was a slow-burning connection that built itself in public, disappeared in private, and then returned as one of the most powerful love stories in modern pop culture. Or at least, that's what it looked like from the outside. Rihanna was already a global force long before Rocky ever entered her emotional orbit. A billionaire business mogul, a music icon, and a woman who had long stopped asking the industry for permission. Everything she touched turned into a cultural moment, from Fenty Beauty to Savage x Fenty. She didn't follow trends, she created them. And that same energy extended into her personal life. Every relationship she had before Rocky came with headlines, heartbreak rumors, and constant public speculation. A$AP Rocky, on the other hand, was built differently. A rapper with a calm but unpredictable aura, someone who blended fashion, music, and street identity into one persona. He wasn't just an artist, he was a cultural shapeshifter. And when these two forces first crossed paths, nobody expected it to become anything serious. Their first major public spark goes back years, to award show appearances, backstage moments, and performances that fans still talk about today. There was chemistry, undeniable, unspoken, almost dangerous chemistry, but at the time, both of them were living separate lives. Rihanna was linked to high-profile relationships, and Rocky was moving through his own complicated dating history. So whatever existed between them stayed hidden beneath layers of timing, fame, and emotional distance. But the internet never forgets energy. Every interaction between them became a screenshot. Every glance became a theory. Every appearance together became a what-if conversation that refused to die. Fans kept building the story for them long before they ever admitted anything publicly. Then came the turning point, the pandemic era. Everything slowed down, including their lives. And according to multiple insider-style reports, that was the moment everything shifted behind the scenes. What started as friendship reportedly turned into something deeper, something more personal, something neither of them fully expected. They weren't chasing the spotlight anymore. They were escaping it together. And when Rihanna later spoke about it in interviews, she hinted at something rare in celebrity relationships: comfort, stability, understanding. She described Rocky as someone who felt like family before anything else. That single detail alone changed how fans saw them forever. Because for Rihanna, family isn't casual. It's everything. From that point forward, their relationship started evolving in a way that felt almost unstoppable. Public appearances became softer, more intimate. Interviews started carrying subtle references. Fashion shows turned into shared moments. And then came the biggest shift of all, their children. The arrival of their first child changed the entire narrative. Suddenly, this wasn't just a relationship anymore. It was a legacy being built in real time. 2 sons, then a daughter. Each birth adding another layer of emotional depth and public fascination. Fans weren't just watching a couple, they were watching a family built under extreme pressure, fame, and constant surveillance. But behind the curated perfection of public appearances, insiders began hinting at something more complicated. The higher the fame grew, the heavier the expectations became. Rihanna wasn't just a partner anymore. She was a global brand, a business empire, and a cultural symbol. And everything she did, including her bold lingerie campaigns, became both artistic expression and commercial power move. A$AP Rocky, meanwhile, was navigating his own identity inside that ecosystem. Supportive publicly, proud in interviews, present at events, but always under the microscope of public interpretation. Every facial expression, every reaction, every silence was analyzed like it held hidden meaning. And that's where the first cracks in the public narrative allegedly began to form. Because in a world where Rihanna's independence is part of her identity and Rocky's reputation is tied to emotional control, even the smallest reaction can be turned into a headline. And once the internet starts writing your story for you, the truth doesn't matter as much as the perception. Still, on the surface, everything looked stable, even strong. They showed unity at events. They supported each other's careers. They defended each other indirectly through actions, not statements. And for a while, it seemed like they had figured out how to survive fame together. But as the next wave of controversy would soon show, stability in celebrity relationships is often just the calm before the storm. Because what started as admiration, then love, then family was about to be tested in a way that nobody in their circle could fully control. And the moment Rihanna's lingerie photos entered the public conversation again, everything they had built was suddenly pulled back into question, whether they liked it or not. And that's where things begin to shift into dangerous territory. The moment Rihanna's lingerie photos dropped, it didn't feel like just another Savage X Fenty campaign anymore. It felt like a trigger point, a line being crossed that everyone was about to interpret in completely different ways. Within minutes, the images were everywhere. Social media timelines froze, reposts multiplied, and commentary spiraled into full-blown obsession. But behind the viral celebration, something else was allegedly unfolding in private. According to insider-style claims circulating online, A$AP Rocky's reaction was not what anyone expected. At first, it was described as silence. No public statement. No immediate appearance. No acknowledgement. But silence in situations like this rarely means calm. And soon, that silence reportedly turned into something far more intense. Sources close to the situation began hinting that Rocky was deeply unsettled by how viral the images became. Not because of the photos themselves, he had seen Rihanna's Savage X Fenty campaigns before, but because of the timing, the intensity, and the way the internet reacted like it was a global event rather than a brand promotion. And that's when the first twist allegedly hit. Private messages circulating through gossip circles claimed that Rocky questioned whether the situation was bigger than a campaign. Those close to him described a moment of emotional frustration, where admiration allegedly collided with discomfort, not over control, but over perception. Over how the world consumes Rihanna. Over how quickly intimacy turns into spectacle. But the situation escalated further when an alleged private argument was said to have taken place behind closed doors. No recordings, no official confirmation, just whispers of raised voices, emotional tension, and a shift in energy that those around them immediately noticed. And then came the moment that changed the direction of the entire narrative. Because shortly after that alleged confrontation, Rihanna reportedly made a decision that stunned even her closest inner circle. Instead of stepping back, instead of addressing the noise, instead of slowing down the moment, she doubled down. She continued the rollout, continued the visuals, continued the promotion as if nothing had changed. To the public, it looked like confidence. But inside the rumor mill, it was interpreted differently. Some insiders claimed it was a message, a statement of independence, a refusal to let emotional tension interfere with business or identity. Others interpreted it as escalation, proof that something between them had reached a breaking point that could no longer be hidden behind curated appearances. And that's where the first major twist fully lands. Because just as speculation about Rocky's reaction was gaining traction, another layer of controversy entered the conversation. Leaked, unverified social media posts allegedly tied to private conversations. Screenshots began circulating, claiming emotional frustration, conflicting viewpoints, and distance between the couple. None of it confirmed, but all of it widely shared. And as always in celebrity culture, perception started replacing truth. Fans immediately split into factions. One side defended Rihanna, calling her empowered, unbothered, and in full control of her image and empire. The other side questioned whether the relationship dynamic was under more strain than anyone realized, especially given how quickly the narrative shifted from celebration to controversy. And just when it seemed like the situation couldn't intensify further, another rumor surfaced that changed everything again. Anonymous entertainment accounts began suggesting that this wasn't just about photos at all, that the lingerie campaign had become a symbolic flashpoint for deeper unresolved tensions about fame, privacy, and emotional boundaries inside one of the most watched relationships in the world. Suddenly, the story wasn't about lingerie anymore. It was about control versus freedom, public image versus private emotion, love versus identity. And in the middle of all of this, Rihanna remained publicly silent on the personal angle, continuing to project confidence while the internet wrote an entirely different storyline behind her back. A$AP Rocky, meanwhile, stayed largely out of the spotlight during the initial wave, which only fueled more speculation. In celebrity culture, absence is never neutral. It becomes interpretation fuel. And in this case, silence was being read as everything from anger to emotional withdrawal. But the real shock came when a supposed insider close to production claimed something even more dramatic, that the entire situation had caused a private reevaluation of boundaries within the relationship itself. Not a breakup, not a confirmed split, but a recalibration of emotional space that had allegedly left those around them uneasy. And just as that claim began to spread, another twist hit the internet harder than the first. Because what started as a lingerie campaign reaction story was now transforming into something much bigger, a narrative about a couple under pressure from fame, privacy invasion, and emotional overload. And the more people talked, the less anyone could separate truth from amplification. And that's when the situation stopped being just about Rihanna's photos, and started becoming about everything they had been hiding from the world up until now. By the time the story reached this stage, it was no longer just a conversation about Rihanna's lingerie photos or A$AP Rocky's alleged reaction. It had evolved into something much bigger, something heavier, something that felt like a storm forming in real time across the entire internet. And that's when the escalation truly began. Within hours of the initial rumors gaining traction, social media platforms turned into war zones of speculation. Hashtags started trending that had nothing to do with the actual Savage x Fenty campaign anymore. Instead, they were focused entirely on one question: was there trouble in paradise? But the real shock didn't come from fans. It came from the sudden wave of so-called insider leaks that started flooding gossip pages. Anonymous accounts began posting cryptic claims suggesting that the emotional tension behind the scenes was far more serious than anyone realized. Some posts claimed that the reaction to the photos had triggered a deep private disagreement between Rihanna and A$AP Rocky, not over jealousy in the traditional sense, but over something more complicated: privacy boundaries, public image, and emotional fatigue from living under constant global surveillance. And that's when the narrative shifted again. Because instead of being framed as a simple reaction to a viral photo shoot, the situation was now being portrayed as a breaking point in a relationship already under extreme pressure. A relationship built in public, raised under scrutiny, and constantly dissected by millions of strangers. Then came the second twist. A series of alleged screenshots began circulating online, claiming to show vague, emotionally charged exchanges between two unidentified sources linked to the couple's inner circle. Nothing directly confirmed, nothing officially verified, but enough to send the internet into overdrive. The messages referenced space, pressure, and misunderstandings that keep repeating. And even though no names were clearly attached, fans immediately connected the dots themselves. Within minutes, theories exploded across X, TikTok, and Instagram. Was Rihanna pulling away? Was Rocky overwhelmed? Was this the moment everything finally cracked? The speculation spread faster than the truth could catch up. And then the media stepped in. Entertainment blogs began publishing increasingly dramatic interpretations of the situation. Headlines shifted from viral photos to relationship tension to alleged emotional fallout. Every article added another layer of intensity, even when the actual facts remained thin. One outlet claimed the situation had sparked internal conflict over public exposure, while another suggested that the couple was navigating a private disagreement behind closed doors. None of these reports were confirmed, but that didn't matter anymore. In the digital ecosystem, repetition creates reality. And just when things felt like they were peaking, another shockwave hit. A viral post from a well-known gossip aggregator account claimed that A$AP Rocky had briefly unfollowed several accounts connected to Rihanna's brand ecosystem. Within minutes, fans were screenshotting, analyzing, and building entire theories around digital breadcrumbs. Even though the unfollow claims were later disputed, the damage was already done, because perception had now fully overtaken truth. At the same time, Rihanna remained completely silent on the personal side of the situation, continuing her usual pattern of letting her work speak for itself. The Savage X Fenty campaign continued rolling out, additional images surfaced, and engagement numbers skyrocketed. But that silence only added fuel to the fire. To supporters, it was confidence, control, power. To skeptics, it was avoidance, distance, emotional detachment. And in the middle of all this chaos, A$AP Rocky's silence became just as loud. No direct statements, no interviews addressing the situation, no clarification, just absence. And in celebrity culture, absence is never neutral. It becomes a narrative space that others rush to fill. Then came the most dramatic shift yet. A rumor emerged suggesting that the situation had escalated into a private confrontation about how much of their personal life should exist in the public eye. According to unverified claims, the lingerie campaign wasn't the problem itself, but what it represented: independence, visibility, control over narrative. And that interpretation changed everything. Because suddenly, the story wasn't about jealousy or misunderstanding anymore. It was about two powerful individuals navigating identity inside a relationship where both of them are global brands. Rihanna, the empire builder who owns her image completely. A$AP Rocky, the artist navigating fame, fatherhood, and constant public interpretation of his reactions. And in that tension, every action becomes symbolic. Every post becomes a statement. Every silence becomes a headline. By this point, the internet wasn't just reacting to events, it was constructing them in real time. And just when it seemed like the situation couldn't become more unstable, a final layer of confusion entered the conversation. Claims that mutual acquaintances were concerned about communication breakdowns between the two. No confirmation, no denial, just enough ambiguity to keep the entire world guessing. And that's when the story crossed into its most dangerous phase yet. Because what started as a viral photo shoot reaction was now being framed as a full-scale emotional unraveling happening behind the curtain of one of the most powerful couples in entertainment. By this stage, the situation had completely escaped the boundaries of private rumor and entered full public spectacle. What started as speculation about Rihanna's lingerie photos and A$AP Rocky's alleged reaction had now transformed into a global debate where everyone, from fans to gossip pages to entertainment insiders, felt entitled to an opinion. And the internet did what it always does in moments like this. It split into factions. On one side were Rihanna's defenders. They saw the entire situation as yet another example of her being misrepresented by online narratives. To them, Rihanna was not just a celebrity in a relationship. She was a billionaire businesswoman controlling her own image, her own empire, and her own creative direction. The lingerie photos weren't controversy. They were branding, artistry, and power. But on the other side, a very different conversation was unfolding. That group believed something deeper was happening behind the scenes. They pointed to A$AP Rocky's alleged silence, the sudden surge of speculation, and the emotional intensity of the rumors as signs that something in the relationship dynamic had shifted. Not necessarily a breakup, but tension, distance, misalignment. And once that divide formed, the internet amplified it instantly. Entertainment blogs began pushing competing narratives. Some headlines framed the story as Rihanna's unstoppable confidence amid online chaos, while others leaned into speculation grows over Rocky's reaction to viral photos. Neither side had new verified information, but both understood what drives engagement: conflict. Then came the celebrity commentary wave. Unverified social media posts began circulating claiming that figures within the fashion and music industry were privately watching the situation unfold with concern. Again, nothing confirmed, but enough ambiguity to keep the story alive. In modern celebrity culture, even vague allusions to industry reaction are enough to escalate a narrative into something larger than reality. And that's exactly what happened here. Fan communities began dissecting every public appearance of the couple. Old interviews were resurfaced. Past quotes were reinterpreted. Even harmless gestures, likes, reposts, absence from certain events, were turned into symbolic evidence. The internet wasn't just reacting anymore. It was investigating. One viral thread claimed that Rihanna's consistency in posting bold Savage X Fenty content was a statement of emotional independence, while another suggested that A$AP Rocky's lack of direct commentary was strategic silence under pressure. Neither interpretation was grounded in any confirmed fact, but both spread widely because they offered meaning to uncertainty. Meanwhile, mainstream entertainment pages leaned into the ambiguity. Some framed the situation as a misunderstood viral moment, emphasizing how Rihanna has always used fashion and lingerie campaigns as part of her brand identity. Others took a more dramatic angle, suggesting that the situation had sparked conversations about boundaries in high-profile relationships. The truth, however, remained unchanged. No official confirmation of any breakup, no verified reports of internal conflict being publicly addressed, and no direct statements from either Rihanna or A$AP Rocky supporting the viral narrative. But in the attention economy, absence of confirmation often behaves like confirmation itself. And that's what made this situation so explosive. Because while facts stayed limited, engagement skyrocketed. Every post, every clip, every headline added another layer of interpretation. And the more the story was discussed, the more real it started to feel to audiences consuming it in real time. Even neutral commentary accounts began framing the situation as one of the most misunderstood celebrity reactions of the year, pointing out how quickly online narratives can evolve from a single viral moment into full-blown relationship theories. Still, neither Rihanna nor Rocky publicly addressed the speculation directly. Rihanna continued focusing on her brand rollout, while Rocky remained largely out of the conversation. And that silence only intensified the divide. Supporters saw strength in restraint. The critics saw emotional distance. And in between those extremes, the truth remained buried under interpretation. But then came the moment that pushed everything into a new phase. A new wave of posts began suggesting that the entire narrative had been blown out of proportion by viral culture itself, arguing that the original lingerie photos were simply part of a standard Savage X Fenty campaign cycle, not a trigger for relationship turmoil. That perspective introduced doubt into the chaos, but it didn't stop it. Because by now, the story had evolved beyond facts. It had become a digital ecosystem of competing emotions, projections, and assumptions. And just when it seemed like the conversation might stabilize, a final claim surfaced that changed the tone all over again, suggesting that what the public was seeing was only a fraction of a much more complicated private reality, one that no headline, no post, and no rumor thread could fully capture, and that the most shocking development might still be waiting just beneath the surface. At this point, the internet believed it had already figured everything out. The narrative had been written, rewritten, debated, and reshaped so many times that it started to feel like the story had reached its final form. Rihanna posted bold Savage X Fenty images. A$AP Rocky allegedly reacted behind closed doors. Rumors of tension spread. Fans divided. Media amplified it. But then came the twist that no one was fully prepared for. Because just as the speculation reached its peak, a new wave of claims began circulating that completely disrupted the direction of the entire conversation. Anonymous sources suddenly shifted the tone of the story, not toward breakup confirmation, not toward reconciliation, but toward something far more complicated. The claim was simple, but explosive. The entire situation had been misinterpreted from the beginning. According to these circulating reports, A$AP Rocky's alleged reaction was never about jealousy, control, or anger over Rihanna's lingerie photos. Instead, insiders suggested it was about timing, pressure, and external interference. The idea being pushed was that the emotional intensity attributed to him online had been exaggerated, reshaped by viral culture into something far more dramatic than reality. And that changed everything again. Because now, Rihanna was no longer being framed as someone reacting to a partner's meltdown, but as someone potentially caught in a manufactured narrative spiral that had very little to do with actual events and everything to do with how quickly the internet constructs drama. Then came another unexpected layer. A separate set of whispers began suggesting that conversations behind the scenes were not about separation at all, but about controlling the narrative moving forward. Not ending anything, not breaking anything, but deciding how much of their private life continues to be interpreted publicly without context. And that's where things got even more intriguing. Because instead of confirming distance, these claims pointed toward coordination, communication, even unity under pressure. The idea being floated was that both Rihanna and Rocky were aware of the noise, and more focused on managing perception than reacting emotionally to it. But of course, none of this was confirmed. And that uncertainty is exactly what kept the story alive. Because just when audiences thought they were watching a breakup narrative unfold, another angle suggested stability. And just when stability seemed possible, the original rumor resurfaced again through reposts, commentary, and recycled claims. The cycle repeated itself instantly. Supporters of Rihanna doubled down on the idea that she is always in control of her image and narrative. Supporters of Rocky argued that he has consistently shown public support, not conflict. And skeptics in the middle pointed out the most important detail of all: neither of them had directly validated any of the viral claims. And yet, the internet continued to behave as if it had. Then came the final shockwave in the form of a widely shared commentary post that summarized the entire situation in a way that caught fire instantly. It suggested that the real story wasn't about lingerie photos, reactions, or relationship tension, but about how quickly modern fame turns a single visual moment into a global emotional storyline. Within hours, that interpretation became just as viral as the original rumor itself. But even that didn't end the speculation. Because the more people tried to solve the story, the more fragmented it became. Every new explanation created new questions. Every denial created new theories. Every silence created new assumptions. And at the center of it all, Rihanna and A$AP Rocky remained exactly where they started. Publicly visible, privately unreadable, and constantly interpreted by millions of people who don't actually have access to the truth. And that is where the story currently stands, not with closure, not with confirmation, but with a growing sense that the real ending hasn't even happened yet. Because in situations like this, the loudest moment is never the final one. It's always the one right before the next revelation changes everything again. So now the question isn't just what you think happened between Rihanna and A$AP Rocky. The real question is why the internet turns every viral moment into a full-blown emotional storyline before any truth is even confirmed. Do you believe Rihanna's lingerie photos were just a normal Savage x Fenty campaign that got completely overhyped by social media? Or do you think there is actually more tension happening behind the scenes than anyone is admitting publicly? Because right now, the story is split in two completely different directions, and both sides are convinced they're right. One side says this is just another example of Rihanna controlling her image, her brand, and her narrative without letting outside noise affect her life. The other side believes A$AP Rocky's reaction, whether exaggerated or not, reveals pressure that the public doesn't fully understand. And the truth is, nobody outside their circle really knows what is happening behind closed doors. But what we do know is this: every time Rihanna drops something bold, the world reacts like it's personal. And every time Rocky stays silent, the internet fills in the blanks for him. So drop your opinion in the comments. Do you think this is just internet drama blown out of proportion? Or is there actually something deeper going on that hasn't been revealed yet? And if you want the next update on this story, because there are already new whispers forming in the background, make sure you subscribe because this is one situation that might not be over yet.